Hi, welcome to Thete Gaming. In this video, I'm going to mull over a few things regarding the news that Nighthaunt getting a new Battletome this spring, and consider, what that what might be needed to get them on the path towards, at least not being the whipping boys. It's actually quite curious. Nighthaunt, a couple of things. Nighthaunt. First of all, it was when I left the hobby, then came back, and Age of Sigmar was there, no longer Fantasy Battle. And I did Nighthaunt first. Not because I found it particularly appealing, but because I'm a very lazy painter and it was very quick and easy to paint a 2,000 point army. I've since got rid of it because I never really considered it one of my favourite armies anyway, and I've now got many more armies and space and all the rest of it. But it has been hit. It was never great in second edition, and it got steadily worse in second edition. And it's really not in a good place in third edition. I did notice also in terms of the Battletome announcements. So Idoneth Deepkin and Fire Slaves first. Makes sense. They've now got pretty old books. But then Daughters of Cain. They had one last year. They've had a new Battletome in the last year. What are they playing with there? And Daughters of Cain don't need any love. And it's not like some of the changes are so widespread that they just now need a new Battletome. It's very odd, very odd. But anyway, Nighthaunt. Basically, when it comes to Nighthaunt, it is a tale of two halves, competitive and casual play. Now, when it comes to Age of Sigmar now, I only really see it from the point of view of casual play. Like when I've compared Game Before, where this channel started when I played World of Warcraft, I could see things from both sides because I was a competitive player. I could also understand things from the casual play point of view. I only really get that one point of view here. Because the thing is, the difference between tabletop game and an online game is you can be a casual player and you can watch competitive players do their stuff. You can be a competitive player and you can watch casual players do their stuff. Tabletop gaming, very difficult. You can't really just follow the tournaments. You might see the odd one streamed, but not very much. You don't really always see what's going on unless you're in that scene. And there are some armies that are actually really strong at both competitive and casual play. The very top tier armies, for example, will be a tough prospect at all levels of play. Doesn't matter what level you are. Sons of Behemoth, Lumineth Realmlords, Disciples of Tzeentch, Daughters of Cain, who, like I say, oddly getting a Battletome just a year after the last one. They are all relatively straightforward to make a good army. It's a very basic level. You can make a decent army, and it's fairly straightforward what you do with it. It's not complicated. And at the top level, the good players can also use it really well. It finishes strongly, consistently, and a lot of people play them in tournaments for that reason. Then there are others where with a very specific list or a very specific way of using it, that most casual players wouldn't, in the hands of a very good player, can do the business as well. Thunder Lizard Seraphon, Virkos, Soulblight Gravelords are two great examples. But Nighthaunt are in a pretty bad spot. Like, you can point to people, but in this recent tournament, like the LVO finished 6th, and you can find these odd little tournaments where someone finishes in the top 10 at a prestigious event as well. So they've done well, they've done it against a good field, but the lists tend to be based around Nagash for a start, which is like half your army. It's a little bit like taking Archaon in a Chaos list or Mega Gargants in, say, Flesh Eater Courts list. It sort of skews it a little bit. You point to, this army did quite well there. It's like, yeah, but half the army was this thing. And the inclusion of these absolute beasts of the game that are not normally part of that Battletome can skew the apparent strength of an army. And I have to say personally, I'm not at all in favour of these real monsters. They just skew the results too much. But they're in the game and they're part of it. But the point is that a normal Nighthaunt army, the sort of Nighthaunt army that someone would reasonably get in the hands of someone who is not a top tournament player, I would suggest will lose almost every time to someone of roundabout equal skill and with a normal list of pretty much any other army. For me, their core problems are, main issue is you just don't have many bodies on the table. When you need those bodies to capture the objectives, you just don't have many. You pay a premium for their almost universal 4-up unmodifiable save, which was decent early on in second edition. But if you look at the armies now, and it comes up against a couple of problems. First is the weight of dice that will still deal with that save. You can have a unit 140 points for 8 Murmur Banshees, which I really like, but it's 8 wounds. 4 up save. They can still deal with it quite easily. Second is the much increased availability of mortal wounds now. Like, being honest, I think mortal wounds has become too common in general. You know, it should have remained, it was fine as a rare type of damage in the game. You know, very rare type of damage. But that's my opinion. What is more objective is that if you are paying a premium for a 4-up unmodifiable save, then mortal wounds are a big problem. Nighthaunt do have, you know, one other notable ability, which is actually quite handy, that they can have half their army deployed in reserves and then brought down the movement phase. That's actually really good for 3rd edition, and is an easy way, for example, to get the battle tactic for 2 units in your opponent's territory early on, and it's always been good for board control. But Stormcast Eternals also get that, and they've got a bunch of other stuff that makes them way scarier when they do it. Because Nighthaunt are not even destructive. It's not like they're a glass cannon that's going to take some damage. They're going to be a bit worried in the first turn, but, you know, they're vulnerable to attack, especially mortal wounds. But once they reach your opponent's lines, they will wreak havoc. They really won't. I'm completely in awe of anyone who manages to do well with Nighthaunt in tournaments. You do sometimes see, people may have already put in the comments, you may see the odd person doing well without Nagash. You know, an Olinda-based army. Which is impressive. In fact, impressive just seems too small a word. But at the casual level, it's just not happening unless the Nighthaunt player is far superior to their opponent. And at the casual level, you put Nighthaunt up against one of the top tier armies, even in casual hands, no contest. Never mind the double turn, be over before that's ever tested. Nighthaunt can't crowd other armies off an objective, and they can't beat them off it either. They're also the poor relation of the Death World in terms of raising their fallen. So you're paying this premium for these wounds effectively. When you lose them, it's not easy to get them back. You know, you've got Guardian of Souls, you've got a spell to be able to get D6 wounds back if you can successfully cast it. You know, there's no automatic +1 to cast it either. You can get a relic that will allow you to do it. There's a command trait to bring a few models back as well on your general. But you very rarely would take a general who could have that command trait. Then you go Soulblight Gravelords. Any hero, special character or not, can just bring back D3 wounds to various units as long as they're nearby. There's a lower chance to bring back half units as well. If you have a unit destroyed, you may be able to bring it back later in the game. But you can do that like now twice a turn. They changed it, didn't they? So I only just found this out. So you can do to the end of any battle shock phase. So you've got much better ways, is what I'm saying, of Soulblight Gravelords bringing things back. Ossiarch Bone Reapers, even more reliable way, because with Arcan or Nagash, and you'd often take Arcan at least, or Catacross even, and you know, you've got a guaranteed way of bringing stuff back in the hero phase, and then Harvesters are a good way of keep replenishing things as and when the damage happens. Flesh Eater Courts just got Courtiers who just bring back multiple models. A Crypt Gas Courtier, 70 points, as long as you can keep it safe at the back. On average, going to bring back 5 ghouls a turn, you know, a battle round. As an innate ability, not a spell. You know, Nighthaunt pay the highest price per wound for their units, have no better protection against the now commonplace mortal wounds, because it's like, oh, they got 6-up ward save. Well, so do Flesh Eater Courts and so do Soulblight Gravelords. And they don't pay as much for their wounds because they don't have a 4-up, unmodifiable save. And they've got the least reliable ways to get the fallen bodies back on the table once it's lost. In addition, the vagaries of 3rd edition, I think, were not kind to Nighthaunt. Mystic Shield changing from reroll saves of 1 to add 1 to save. Reroll saves of 1, really good for Nighthaunt. Add 1 to save, good joke. You're not allowed to. Nighthaunt aren't allowed to modify their save up or down. Same applies to the core command ability, +1 save. Yeah, thanks. Battle tactics that either need or derive a bonus from having monsters in your army. Also an issue for an army that doesn't have any in your typical non-tournament Nighthaunt army. So straight away an army that's got either 3 monsters or 2 monsters and a caster who can cast Metamorphosis can get a bonus for the run-through units at the start. They're a point ahead. Even if the Nighthaunt match them from that point on, they're a point ahead. You know, granted, it does mean you're not sacrificing points when they die, but still you generally get more for having them than you risk. We know that Nighthaunt will be getting a range unit in the new Battletome, though I would say this will only be good again if they're worth the points for it. If they're still paying a premium for a defensive ability that for a range unit you don't even want tested, that's going to be of limited use. But in general, it should help. It will at least help. Obviously, they have to sort out the ethereal save in some way. Will it work, for example, like Dark Mist for Neferata? Is it like going to be a save that's basically rend-proof? Can't be negatively modified? Would it be too much to give them a 4-up save that can't be negatively modified? Do they just drop them unmodifiable part? Because that would be an obvious way. They could get a 4-up save. The save could be the same as normal, but instead of unmodifiable, it could be ignore 1 point of rend. There's a few armies that do that now. That's quite useful, really. There's not that many rend 2 or better attacks in the game anyway. And then you could attach a more realistic points premium to this. Maybe they could beef up some combat units as well, so they actually did do some damage when they got stuck in there. And I think ordinarily you could argue that you have to be careful in tackling massive problems at the casual level, that you don't deliver a real powerhouse to top tournament players. But I think there are a couple of reasons here to suppose I don't think they're going to be in much danger of doing this with Nighthaunt. The first is, it's not like Nighthaunt do well in general. Yes, you can point to this exceptional person who placed well in this tournament. They didn't win it though. And then, but overall, Nighthaunt are still stuck to the bottom of the ranking. So the majority of people who are going to tournaments with Nighthaunt, they're stuck by Gloomspite Gis at the bottom of the heap, where it's all smelly. But they're ghosts, they don't care about the smell. Secondly, it's not like the bulk of the field is tightly packed. It's they've actually done really well in 40k recently, getting the win rate for most armies now around about the 50%. But in Age of Sigmar, you've got a few armies that are just way out there at both the casual and competitive level, because the ones that are way out there at the tournament level are often also the straightforward ones to use. So because low skill cap as well. It's the armies where it's sometimes described as easy to use, difficult, but plenty of room to master as well. So you haven't got a ceiling, so low skill threshold, but also a very high skill ceiling as well to allow the much better players to do well in the tournaments. It's not going to compete with them. It'd be impossible to have Nighthaunt catapulted into their pantheon without completely changing the nature of the whole army, which I don't think they're going to do. But, a few months to wait and see. Maybe some find out early. I'm patient. I don't go scrabbling around for tidbits, which may or may not be true. But as I say, although I have dumped my own Nighthaunt army now, I do not intend to get it later. As I say, it was just one that was quick and easy to paint. Now that I've got several armies, it doesn't particularly appeal. But I do hope they put some real thought into it, because it is a terrible shame that any army, that someone could easily get, and it is an army they've pushed. It's been in plenty of box sets and still is. It was in the Mortal Realms, and for it to be so poor at the moment is a real tragedy. But those are my thoughts anyway. Let me know yours in the comments below, and until next time, I'll see you later.